So, is everybody here familiar with what Ron DeSantis did recently? If not, it involves lying to a bunch of people who immigrated to America, apparently seeking asylum, and throwing them into a completely different state on an island. And yeah, it's just, we'll get into it. This one is from Idris. Fun fact, slimes can absorb any liquid, but when absorbed, they have different reactions than drinking. Unfun fact, Suris has no more coffee. That is great. The next one we have here is from Life, I Guess. This took all my layers and all my soul. Well, it is standing upright and very happy. The last one we have here is from Closet Weeb. I may or may not have done this quick koikatsu thing as an apology for the earlier coin. That is a spot-on VKS, Suris. As always, everyone, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it in the fan art section of the Discord. With that all said, let's go ahead and get into the topic at hand. So, basically, Ron DeSantis took a whole bunch of people who were, not supposed to be sent to an island where they weren't ready to take a bunch of immigrants and got them on a plane and threw them there. Let's look at the article itself. So, Florida's Republican governor on Friday defended his position to fly dozens of immigrants to the wealthy vacation island of Martha's Vineyard from Texas, and said similar actions could follow as a political dispute over border security deepened in his run-up to U.S. elections. So, what is this, functionally? We'll go ahead and take a look here. But this is a political stunt. It's public knowledge that Ron DeSantis wants to run for president of the United States in 2024. This is a political stunt. By being a piece of shit, he is going to actually embolden and speak to his audience, which are also pieces of shit. Because if you are a bully, you look at people who do the thing, bullying, and you nod your head and go, that's cool, I want to do that too. So let's take a look at how Ron DeSantis, the piece of shit, is going to actually speak to other people who are also pieces of shit. And dude, do we have audio? Please? No? Okay. Martha's Vineyard. Some migrants were flown to the wealthy island of Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. They said on Tuesday that they were duped about their destination, and Democratic leaders called for a probe of the move by Florida's Republican governor to send them there from Texas. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who is up for re-election in November and is seen as a possible presidential contender for 2024, took credit for the two flights, which originated in San Antonio, Texas, and stopped in Florida on their way to Martha's Vineyard. The White House and residents of the vacation enclave called it a political stunt, as DeSantis joined Republican governors from Texas and Arizona in sending migrants north. The governors have sought to highlight the two parties' differences on immigration policy and shift the burden of caring for immigrants over to Democratic areas. For months, Texas and Arizona have sent busloads of migrants to the Democratic-run cities of New York, Chicago, and Washington. Florida now joins the campaign. Details of how the flights were arranged and paid for remain unclear, as well as an explanation to why Florida was moving migrants to Texas. The Florida legislature has appropriated $12 million to transport migrants from states to other locations. The two flights on Wednesday carried about 50 immigrants, mostly Venezuelans, as Martha's Vineyard's airport officials said. Hours later, after the planes landed, 2 buses sent by Texas Governor Greg Abbott and another Republican facing re-election dropped off migrants in a Washington neighborhood not far from Vice President Kamala Harris's official residence on Thursday. One Venezuelan migrant who arrived at Martha's Vineyard identified himself as Lewis, 27, and he had 9 relatives who were promised a flight to Massachusetts, along with shelter, support for 90 days, and help with work permits and English lessons. He said they were surprised when the flights landed on an island. He said the promises came from a woman who gave her name as Perla, who approached his family on the street outside a San Antonio shelter after they crossed from Mexico and the United States border authorities released them with an immigration court date. He said the woman, who also put them up in a hotel, did not provide a last name or any affiliation, but asked them to sign a liability waiver. "We're scared," he said, adding that he and others felt that they were lied to. "I hope they give us help." Residents of Martha's Vineyard rallied to aid the confused migrants and offering housing at St. Andrew's Episcopal Church. Martha's Vineyard is best known as a summer retreat populated mostly by affluent liberal Americans, including former President Barack Obama, a Democrat who owns a multi-million-dollar vacation home there. Locals stopped by to donate money and children's toys while attorneys mobilized to offer free legal help. "It's a stunt to make political points about not caring who gets hurt," said Mikey Savoy, 58, a nurse at Martha's Vineyard Region High School. Desantis defended the flights, telling news conferences that Democratic President Joe Biden has refused to lift a finger to secure the border. "We've worked on innovative ways to be able to protect the state of Florida from the impact of Biden's border policies." White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said Republican governors were using migrants as political pawns. Yeah, cruelty is the point. The entire point of stunts like this is to be the high school bully and have people look at you being the high school bully and nod their heads and wish that they too could be the strong-arm high school bullies, like you're being right now. The entire point is for this to be a story that he can recount repeatedly when he is on the trail for president. This is something Ron DeSantis is going to put as a feather in his cap, so that he can go, "Look, Biden is not going to support the borders, and Kamala Harris, when Biden dies, won't do it either. But I, Ron DeSan Antonio dipshit, has the ability to save you. Where President Trump tried to build the wall, I will erect the human trafficking network." Oh, that's not the way I want to come. That's not how I want to come across. Those aren't the words I needed. I need someone else to write my speeches. That's functionally what's going to happen. And yeah, there's a class action lawsuit going on right now in regards to this. Legal questions. Several Democrats, including Charlie Crist, DeSantis' opponent in Florida, and California Governor Gavin Newsom, called on federal authorities to investigate. Massachusetts attorney Rachel Rollins said at a news conference that her office would be looking into the case and speaking with the Justice Department. The United States Department of Homeland Security developed a plan last year to fly migrants to interior cities in coordination with aid groups to ease pressures on border regions, a Biden administration official told Reuters, and requesting anonymity to discuss internal planning. The White House never adopted the idea, according to a second U.S. official familiar with the matter. The use of resources from Florida to move migrants from Texas to Massachusetts raises legal concerns, including about what information was relayed to the migrants before they boarded and whether they were coerced. U.S. border agents have made 1.8 million migrant arrests at the U.S.-Mexico border since last October. Many are quickly expelled to Mexico or other countries under a public health rule implemented in 2020 to curb the spread of COVID. But hundreds and thousands of Cubans, Nicaraguans, Venezuelans, and others cannot be expelled because Mexico refuses to accept them or because they can pursue asylum claims. Many migrants who are released from U.S. custody in border states seek to move elsewhere to join relatives or find jobs. They often must check with U.S. immigration authorities or attend court hearings to obtain legal status. And this is the important part here. You are allowed to come to America without legally migrating here and seek asylum. That is a thing you are allowed to do. And if anyone in the group of people that DeSantis threw and trafficked to another state were doing that, then what DeSantis did was highly illegal. But let's go back to the original article itself, where DeSantis defends this. He claimed credit for a pair of chartered flights on Wednesday that carried around 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. At a news conference in Daytona Beach, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis blamed Democratic President Joe Biden for what he portrayed as a failure to stop migrants from crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. DeSantis said the Florida legislature set aside $12 million to transport migrants out of the state, and that his government would likely use the funds to protect Florida. From what? Protect Florida from what? Cheap labor? Like, here's the thing. Functionally, in the States, when people immigrate here, one of the first things that they do, usually, is pick up jobs that people don't want to do. And they will usually do those jobs for cheaper. Now, is it ethical to pay people who immigrate to your country less money for same job? No, it's not. But the point is, if the goal is to say that these are bad people or they're a problem whatsoever, however you want to word it, economically, they're not even a fucking burden. Economically, they actually help our country. And we can back that up with FDI statistics that also show that, by and large, people immigrating to our country, illegally or legally, also tend to do less crime than local natively born citizens. Ron DeSantis goes on to say that there may be more flights, there may be buses. The state paid $615,000 to Virtual Systems Company Incorporated, an aviation business, on September as part of a relocation program for unauthorized aliens. The company did not immediately respond to a request for comment. $615,000. Can you think of something that money could be spent on instead? I mean, for me, $615,000 would be plenty to build, a handful of townhomes that could house these people instead. And then you could get them, working on taking jobs. I mean, what is it people are saying these days? Nobody wants to work all the time. Wouldn't it be just, perfect and peachy to take people who are looking for jobs in America and house them around so they can benefit your local economy? Wouldn't that be a good thing? Wouldn't that be good? No, just deport them away, just engage in cruelty? Okay. The flights to Martha's Vineyards followed a busing effort by Texas Governor Greg Abbott, another Republican, that has sent more than 10,000 migrants to Democrat-controlled cities of Washington, New York, and Chicago since April. The Republican governor of Arizona has also sent more than 1,800 migrants to Washington. Unlike those major cities, the island south of Boston is home to around 20,000 year-round residents and is a known vacation spot for affluent liberals. We already went over that part. On Friday morning in Martha's Vineyard, the migrants, a group of mostly Venezuelans, including half a dozen children, boarded buses en route to a ferry to Cape Cod in transportation organized by Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker, a Republican. He said they would be housed temporarily at a Cape Cod military base. The scene left some of the island residents who volunteered to shelter them at a church for 2 nights in tears. Locals had come together to donate money, toiletries, and toys for the migrants. A local thrift shop donated clean clothes, restaurants took turns organizing meals, and pro bono lawyers flew in to help the migrants with paperwork and immigration cases. I want them to have a good life, said Lisa Belcastro, who helped organize cots and supplies at St. Andrew's Episcopal Church, which sits among expensive white clapboard homes in Edgartown. I want them to come to America and be embraced. They all want to work. So, before we continue on with this, I want to pivot to the more human side of this. Whatever you think about what Ron DeSantis did, his little political stunt, I want you to go ahead and watch this video real quick. Because we've gone over a decent bit of the facts where this is concerned. Now, let's go ahead and go over...
Arrived last night, make it clear that they were lied to again and again, and fraudulently induced to board...
Load, please.
Arrived last.
Why is it not loading right?
Arrived last. Arrived last night make it clear that they were lied to again and again and fraudulently induced to board the planes. They were told there was a surprise present for them and that there would be jobs and housing awaiting for them when they arrived. This was obviously a sadistic lie. Not only did those responsible for this stunt know that there was no housing and no employment awaiting the migrants, they also very intentionally chose not to call ahead to any single office authority on Martha's Vineyard so that even the most basic human needs arrangements could be made, ensuring that no help awaited the migrants at all was the entire point. They were provided with a cartoonishly simple map of Martha's Vineyard and the United States and a brief brochure containing snippets from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts website and instructions to change their address with USCIS when they relocated. This is especially troubling as anyone with even the most basic understanding of the immigration proceedings knows that USCIS was not the agency with whom the migrants would have to record their addresses and has nothing to do with their cases in any way. It is clear that this was an intentional attempt to ensure that these migrants were removed in absentia when they failed to change their address with the proper agency. This was a purposeful derailment designed to prevent people from complying with federal immigration policies.
And I want to pause on this real quick, because I think this is an important part to note. This literally made it harder for people to immigrate. People who could have gone through legal means of seeking asylum and then building up a repertoire of things that would allow them to be a United States citizen, this type of stuff right here, this is a governor going to cruel lengths to decrease the likelihood that somebody will be able to be an American citizen. The propagandic ideal that we as United States citizens have the ability to achieve the American dream is supposed to be a thing that not only we can strive for, but also anybody else. Anybody who is willing to come here and do the work. Ron, the sandbag piece of shit, can we have a conversation about how you are actively going against that awkwardly propagandistic ideal of the American dream?
This is problematic because the state should not be interfering with federal immigration policy. Before they boarded the planes, the migrants were processed by agents of the Department of Homeland Security, who listed falsified addresses on the migrants' paperwork. Agents apparently chose random homeless shelters all across the country, from Washington to Florida, to list the migrants' mailing addresses, even when told by the migrants that they had no address in the U.S. According to the paperwork provided to them, the migrants are required to check in with ICE office nearest to the fake address chosen for them by DHS or be permanently removed from the United States, with some required to check in as early as this coming Monday.
You know, after sending them to a state that necessarily they wouldn't be able to make it to any of those locations. Hey, violating federal policies. That's what you want your governor to do, right?
It could not be clearer that this is an attempt to ensure that these people are ordered removed, even as they try as hard as they can to comply with the instructions provided to them. There is no other reason to list as someone's mailing address a homeless shelter in Tacoma, Washington, when they ship him to Massachusetts. It is sickeningly cruel, throwing obstacles in the way of people fleeing violence and oppression, some of whom walked through 10 countries in the hopes of finding safety. It is shameful and inhuman. Many of these victims were deprived of medical care despite clear existing injuries. These are human beings who were deprived of basic human rights. To the people who find themselves, these wonderful people who find themselves plane wrecked on our island, I have a message for all of them. You are not alone. We have your backs. We are proud to be here for you. And we've got you. If the intention of those who perpetrated this horrendous act was to create a crisis, you have failed. Their demeanor is kind, their demeanor is grateful, and their demeanor is just that they want to be doing everything right. Their biggest concern today is that many of them have dates to appear in San Antonio Monday morning, Tacoma, Washington Monday morning, Washington, D.C. Monday morning. You tell me how that's possible.
We will be exploring all civil and criminal legal options to hold the perpetrators accountable and to prevent this injustice from repeating itself.
Okay. So, hopefully this gives plenty of context for the situation itself. We have a group of people who are here and are being trafficked around the country as a political stunt, and are not only being used as pawns, but being harmed in the process. This is Ron DeSantis. When Ron DeSantis shows you that he is a scheming, conniving piece of shit who doesn't actually value human life, believe him. Believe him when he shows you that he is garbage. Please. Kargan the Hunter, thank you for redeeming your points for fucking degen. But it's important to note in situations like this that there's going to be people in my comment section. In the comment section of this is all that just go, yeah, but look, Martha's Vineyard did everything they could to get people out of there as fast as possible because Martha's Vineyard was not notified. They were not notified that they were going to have a bunch of people on their doorstep, and with the time they had, they were as hospitable as they could be and got them housing where they could, both in and outside of Martha's Vineyard. Prince Catsbane, thank you very much for redeeming your points for an owl. Owl.
Arrived last night.
No, don't. I don't know how many times I have to say it. The person who invented autoplay does not deserve human rights. Don't know how many times I have to say that. But no. So, a lot of people who try to do damage control for the GOP will actually try to tell you that, as I said, Martha's Vineyard did everything they could to get those immigrants out of their area as fast as possible. The fact of the matter is, they went to a regional emergency shelter that actually had the capacity for them, as opposed to the cots in a church that was thrown up at the last second for them. Now, why do we have this sudden increase from people like Greg and people like Ron DeSantis in bullying migrants? Why do we have everything here? Well, turns out that when you are 2 years away from an election cycle, you need political stunts as your backstory. You need something that you can rally behind. When Ron DeSantis is trying to convince you that you should vote for him over Biden, regardless of your misgivings where Biden's concerned, he wants you to remember this story as a moment of victory and triumph, as opposed to what it is, a red flag. But we can actually take a minute and look at the brochure specifically that was given to the migrants. That's a thing we can do to show that they were actually lied to. Because we should also point out that Ron DeSantis is going to lie not only to them, but to you as an American citizen. Because we have that brochure right here. Resettlement agencies who resettle refugees under the Match Grant Program provide cash assistance and in-kind support for refugees for an additional 90 days beyond the normal 30-day period for reception and placement assistance. Employees for refugee programs and services for eligible populations seeking employment. The refugee cash assistance will provide 8 months of cash assistance for income-eligible refugees without dependent children who reside in Massachusetts. And then we skip that song. They will provide targeted services for both early employment and long-term self-sufficiency through an integrated model including English and literacy instruction, employment-related case management, employment readiness, access to vocational skill training, and job placements. So, curious, is it on a place that wasn't expecting migrants to be there and wasn't part of any of these magical programs that Ron DeSantis is talking about? Or is it on Ron for fucking lying to people? I don't know. I'd throw it on him, personally. I'll be interested to see what the legal case with this ends up turning out to be. The benefits described in the brochure and the resettlement benefits available to refugees who've been referred to by the unit authorized to live in the United States are not available to the migrants who are seeking asylum. Not in this specific scenario. These are all lies put down on paper for the purpose of convincing migrants to go board a plane as part of a political stunt for Ron DeSantis. So, what do you think? Let me know in the comment section below, because I've given my opinions already. Insert end of video tagline here.